Ivo, when you hear the term business development, how do you make sense of it?
Someone that develops the business. Well,
It's good that we have a guest that can explain things.
The success of the business development process is not closing a deal, but it's creating the opportunity so that the sales comes in. There we go.
my papers are a little wet, so I can't see the next questions that we have.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to HackCast. This is the official Hacksoft podcast where we explore the intersection between software development and running a software development business from the unique point of view of being in Eastern Europe, and more specifically, we are in Sofia, Bulgaria. Ivo, where are we right now, and who do we have with us?
We are within the HackCast studio. It's episode number 6, season
Yes.
4, right?
Yeah.
And we have a very special guest. He's not only head of solutions consulting at AMPECO, but he's also really close personal friend of mine. We have Todor Stratiev here. Hey, Toshe, say hi.
Hi guys, hi everyone, and really nice to be here. Thank you for the invite.
It's a huge pleasure for us too. So, tell us a couple words about the company you work in, AMPECO, and a couple words about you.
Right, a couple words about me. I come from a more generalist profile, which means I am to have good understanding of the different aspects of a business. And over the last few years, I've been really focused on sales, pre-sales for technical companies, for startups in Bulgaria, mainly enterprise sales, so mainly selling to large businesses. At AMPECO, I'm currently head of solution consulting. I started as a salesperson. I still have some sales and business development responsibilities, but right now my role is head of solution consulting, which is our non-technical pre-sales team.
Okay, I got 2 important questions here. So, taken from AMPECO's website, AMPECO is a Bulgarian startup that develops a white-labeled EV charging management software.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Tell us more about the product you're actually selling.
Right. Well, the software we develop enables charge point operators and electromobility service providers. Those are the companies operating networks of chargers for electric vehicles. And also building the interfaces for EV drivers so they could find those networks of chargers. White label really means that we brand it for the customer. So the software we have, we make it look like it's our customer's own software. It's branded with their colors and logos and everything. And it looks like it's their own application. So effectively, this allows them to start very quickly, having their own interfaces, but also having a fully developed back office system which can manage the different aspects of the charge point management business. And they can start very quickly. They have a very solid solution. They can go to market in a matter of, if not weeks, then a few months.
Okay, so if I'm the one trying to charge my car,
Mm-hmm.
you're not the guys that produce the charging station, but you're the guys that are doing the software for the back office of the charging station provider, and you are the guys that are doing the mobile app, for example, that I'm using while charging my car.
Yes, correct. So in this space, there's at least a few different main components you need to think of. There is the hardware, which is the charging stations. There is the firmware that goes into the charging stations. There are back office systems like ours, and there is interfaces like the mobile application that I mentioned, but also web portals and stuff like that. All of that is also facilitated by an industry standard protocol, which allows communication between the stations and the back office systems directly. And also, from then on, it's really about flexibility. Most of the large players would like to build their own interfaces. And this is why we aim to be the best platform on the market, because our architecture allows for easy developing on top of what we have.
Okay, so if I want to start operating EV charging stations, I'm contacting you, you're selling me the software solution, and then I need to figure out which charging station to buy stations, and then I need just to manage them.
Yeah, just that, but also actually a bunch of stuff. So like you need hardware, you need to figure out a connectivity provider. So those stations need to be connected to the internet so we can manage them. You need to figure out who is doing the installation and maintenance of those stations because, you know, they're a device that takes maintenance. We do a bunch of it over the air, you know, through our back office directly. But you still need a team of people who should be available to go on site and check if something is wrong. And of course, you need driver support. Actually, there's a lot of support going on in this business, especially in the early days, because you have to be you have to educate customers. So those guys have to educate EV drivers. Sometimes it's something as simple as the sequence of action, like when do you pull the plug, when do you click on start charging. We on our end need to educate the operators as well, because quite often we have, I mean, we work with different businesses. Many of them will be large energy companies who have decided to go into this in this new niche, but many of them would also be startups. And it's guys who, let's say, are good at getting financing, are good at building teams or building a product, but they have somewhat limited knowledge in the beginning about EV charging. So our role is quite educational in the process, and in the same way, they often need to educate EV drivers and, you know, what needs to happen. So a lot of support is needed.
Okay. Yeah, I've been in this situation a couple of times, like calling the support, hey guys, where to plug this? It's not working.
Well, for an electric vehicle?
Yeah, for electric vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, in the early days of EV charging, there's still a few issues with reliability of the network, especially in markets where there's a lot of government financing, a lot of state financing, because what happens is they simply roll out a lot of infrastructure to get the financing, and it's not about the quality of it, but it's about, you know, making use of the investment. That's really the case in the US right now. There's an interesting phenomenon that the US is someone, you know how in Europe usually a lot of the economy is about regulation and government financing, and the US has always been about the innovative guys. Well, in EV charging is the opposite. Europe is ahead because there was a lot of regulation over the past 10 years to do more EV charging, so we have more experience. And in the US, actually, not only are they slightly behind because of Trump's, Trump's term, but also they're right now they're investing a lot of money to, you know, catch up, but it's at the cost of the quality, right? A lot of their networks are not working great. So this is where the niche for us comes in. Like our product is able to solve many of those pain points.
All right. So if I am to summarize, if I am Ivan and I want to do some big business here in Bulgaria, because EVs are getting more and more popular, you can see quite a lot of electric vehicles all around Sofia. I will need to find first someone to procure me the hardware, the charging stations, and all the just around the charging stations, and then most probably those guys will tell me, hey, but you also need the software in order to run this. So go talk with AMPECO, and you guys are going to come after the hardware is already installed, and you're going to install the software, or at least that part of the software that needs to connect to the firmware on my charging stations, figure out the connectivity, take some 4G, 5G chips, put them in the charging station, and then you will give me some kind of like cloud-based portal where I can see all of my charging stations in one place. Is this correct? I'm
more or less,
making a few assumptions.
No, it's good. It's good. I would say there's a few maybe assumptions that we need to address. One is we don't install anything on the charge points.
Okay.
So they just connect over the internet.
So you put in the 5G chip there, and the firmware knows where to send the raw data.
Right, yeah, we just configure them. We connect them to our back office. It's a secure connection. It allows
That's the protocol thing, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's sometimes us that are recommended by the hardware guys. It's sometimes we that need to recommend hardware.
Hardware guys, yeah.
So it's usually different flows, but This is for starting out operators, which is still a lot of the cases because we're in the early days. But over the last, I think, couple of years, AMPECO's really positioned more for servicing large operators.
Okay.
So the kind of energy companies we're signing, they already have thousands of stations, or in some cases, tens of thousands of stations.
Okay.
In markets like Norway, for example. That's 85% of the new car sales in Norway are electric vehicles. So it's already, while it's a small population, it's roughly the size of Bulgaria, I think.
Yep.
The number of EVs is huge, so it's already a step ahead of any other European market.
Got it. All right, so that's. I think I finally understood what AMPECO are doing. So thank you for the both of you for the explanation. It was good just to listen on the site. And Toshko, you are the head of solutions consulting at AMPECO, but you also mentioned a bunch of stuff like sales, pre-sales, and business development. And actually, for this episode, this is going to be the topic of the episode. We're going to talk about sales and business development in the tech startup space, and we are going to address all the different terms. We're going to try to explain them, and we are going to be asking Toshko a lot of questions because we are tech guys. We are running a software development company, but as you can imagine, we had a lot of struggles and we had to learn the business side of things along the way. Otherwise, we would not be here at all.
Yep.
So this would be extremely also, how to say, good for us because interesting and good. We are going to learn stuff and we're going to ask questions. So, do you want to start with, because you said that you started with as a sales at AMPECO and right now you're head of solutions. So I think let's go through the career journey because this will give us the first insight between like what is sales and what is head of solutions and what's the difference there. So let's start with that.
Right. Well, sales is, first of all, generally quite a broad term, right? Everyone talks about sales, and to be honest, if you're in a startup and if you're lucky to be one of the first few employees, really everyone should be kind of doing sales. Whether it's, if you're a developer, you might be doing sales in your community so that you can recruit more people. But if you're a CEO, CTO, everyone should be involved in those sales process. By sales, we mean the general process from having someone who's potentially interested in your products,
right,
to, discovering more about their needs, having a product demo if you're a product company, then, backing up your name, so saying who else you work with, then maybe handling some objections or understanding any concerns they have, then understanding what commercials will work best for everyone, then the terms and conditions, and then closing the deal. So this whole thing, generally, is called the sales process. And I started out as a salesperson at AMPECO, which allowed me to get a very good overview of the company, of how we do business, both on the front end, so like sales, but also post-sales, because I was also account manager for the customers that I would sign. So I can see what actually, happens, and I can be confident that, the way I speak to customers is honest and truthful. And I eventually transitioned to take up more specific sales functionalities. So, for example, we have a lot of what we call tenders. So tenders are...
What is a tender?
A tender is like it's a organized purchasing process, like Turk in Bulgarian, but it's basically bidding.
All right.
You have a lot of this in the public space, but actually what you don't find out is you have a lot of private tenders as well. So if a large company decides to purchase a complex product that's very important for it and could be very risky for its operations, it goes through a more structured purchasing process like a tender. And there's really a bunch of types of tenders, like request for information, RFIs, request for proposals, RFPs, requests for quotation, RFQs. There's somewhat of a logical sequence of those, but not always followed by everyone. The idea with tenders is buyers aim to, first of all, limit risk. Risk is the most important thing in enterprise sales.
Okay.
We can talk a bit more
We'll
about
get
this.
there. Yeah.
First of all, they aim to limit risk by understanding every aspect of it. Okay, from including information in the bit about the product and its capabilities, but also company, the seller's financial health.
Okay.
But also the seller's human resource, like what experts do they have to support the delivery of this project. But also security, let's say, reliability, scalability of the system. All of those aspects would usually be covered in a more complex tender.
And also increase competition if you want to see multiple offers. So the first thing that I'm hearing right now is if you are a startup and you want to be selling to bigger companies, you have no previous experience with this sounds like a headache to me. Like there is a tender process which is a structured multi-step process that can go for months, I believe. Years? Oh, wow. And then you need to follow through. And it's not like, hey, I like you, let's work together. But rather, I need to be sure that once we start working, we are going to be working together for many, many years. And this is part of the game.
Yeah, absolutely right. Everything you say is correct. I would say it's a very complex process, and there's a lot of specifics at every step of it that you need to know. And in that way, it's been an amazing learning experience because no other company has really been able to offer me something like this.
So you started as a sales, which the way that you described it is from there is a lead, and then you take on the lead, and then you get the lead through the entire process. And at a certain point, you started dealing with tenders, which is like a more complex like a more complex sales process and needs more follow through, needs more knowledge of the system. And okay, so we got there.
Yeah. So I started taking up more of the responsibilities related to tenders and also to contracts.
Okay.
And I started helping out my fellow sales colleagues with their tenders and their contracts, and eventually started leading the team that focuses on pre-sales support, on the tenders, and on what we call proof of concept systems. So those are the test systems for, if you want to try out the platform for a few weeks or a month, this would be the testing experience that we provide.
All right. So we have sales, we have pre-sales, we have tenders. So pre-sales, this is like a funny term to me because I'm not really sure how to describe it if someone asks me what pre-sales is. So how would you, if you have to describe it in a couple of sentences?
Yeah, I understand this. I was also very confused when I first heard the term. Well, to understand how they differ, let's talk about sales for a second.
All right.
Sales, a good salesperson needs to be able to do a few things. Like they need to be very good at mechanics. So they need to be following up with their leads. They need to be scheduling the right meetings, checking in on at the right time, basically be there for the customer where they need it. They need to be good at persuasion. Okay, so they need to know how to communicate to that customer and how to explain a certain topic in the way that will resonate with the customer, that will understand their needs. And they also need to know a lot about, well, not a lot. They need to know about the product and the industry. And this is where it gets complex because with time our products, develop to be quite complex. It's somewhat unreasonable to expect from salespeople to focus on deep understanding of the product's capabilities or very deep understanding of the industry. So instead, you would want them to make sure they're amazing at mechanics and persuasion.
All right.
And of course, the skills like time management, people skills, and so on. This is where pre-sales steps in. This is the team that's expected to bring in expertise in the process when it comes to the product and the industry. So pre-sales support really means stepping in a discussion with the salesperson and helping them do a deeper analysis, helping ask the customer the right questions so you can unpack their business needs and have a better understanding of those. and ideally also be able to map solutions to those business needs. This is why in our case it's called solution consulting, because first of all, we have a consultative approach to sales. So we start with understanding the customer, their needs, asking a lot of questions. When they mention a need, we ask why you need this. So it's a lot of whys to get to the business need. And then it's about mapping those to, the capabilities of the company or the capabilities of the solution to deliver against them. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to, thank you for the explanation. I'm trying to map to our experience because we have very limited sale experience. Definitely no tender processes. So we recently launched the consulting product. Like we have 100 euros per hour flat rates, and we agree the hours beforehand before we start working. So for example, if you need us to take a look at some piece of software that you're running and we see that it's going to be 8 hours, I just say, I'm going to take a day. If you're okay, we're going to execute. That's all. And the process that we have been doing is I'm talking, for example, to a client and I'm acting like a sales. I can be technical, but I'm acting like a sales. I'm warming up the client so the client feels okay to actually, like the client justifies to himself or herself the amount. And so I'm like giving different examples for if we start working like for real is going to be much more expensive. So that's how you can get a fraction of our value. And the clients are quite happy. And then I bring some of our senior engineers and senior team leads, and they start asking the why questions. Like it's still, I will still call it a sales process because the client hasn't been closed yet, but they start asking the why questions and the technical questions, and most probably execute the work after this. So just trying to map sales and pre-sales. Like sales is the warming process of the client for me. This is how I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a step back from business to consumer, business to business, or enterprise sales, at the core of every sales process, there's a few things. Everything starts with gaining authority. You want to demonstrate how you're the right person to advise there. Okay. Why would I listen to Rado and Ivo for my software? Well, because they've delivered this and this and that project successfully for this and this type of companies, and because of this is what people in the community say about them. So you want to establish authority, and you want to be seen as a trusted advisor. This is really the only reasonable way to go about sales right now. And part of that is to also build a relationship with the customer over the process. That relationship might be because, for example, we create products and services that are very essential for those customers. Like literally their success depends on you delivering.
Yes.
So the sales process needs to be like a demo of the relationship as well, not just of the technical capability. You need to be able to demonstrate to them how, first of all, you respond quickly when they need you. Secondly, you respond, adequately. It's not just a response, but you're able to address their need. And thirdly, ideally, you can deliver something small during the sales process as well, so that they can see that you've listened, you've cared, and this is what we expected. So any sales process will have similar components, regardless of whether you're selling product or service. But of course, from then on, you have differences.
This was a great summary. We're definitely going to clip it and put it as something separate. Really, really well said. I think it resonated with me. And
so you mentioned consulting approach. So before actually in the pre-sales process, you are like consulting the client, trying to give the client some value even before starting working with them, right? And this sounds like something that's free of charge and just as the beginning of the sales process.
Yeah, well, all of those things, for example, whether it's free of charge and what exactly you do as part of the pre-sales process, they would depend on what you're selling. Like you can't be selling something that's cheap, and then there'll be a lot of people wanting it. You cannot afford to deliver something for free as part of every sales process. It's more common for enterprise sales where deals are larger and longer as well. So let's say I work over 12 months to try and win this customer. It's considerable amount of money, so we are interested in also investing, and having some costs is a normal part of a sales process in this kind of scenarios. So then you would be happy to maybe set up a demo of the product specifically for them, to also configure it the way they need it to be configured. So it's more of a real life testing experience for them. They can connect it to their actual problems they have right now, and they can see the solutions there themselves. Generally speaking, you would see where you can add value, whether it's about the relationship. So, for example, their current supplier isn't listening to them or is not supporting them well enough, or it's about the product and its capabilities. But yeah, this kind of process would require more of an investment on your end compared to if you're selling to small businesses, for example. Then you can have a different go-to-market strategy that's more about sales strategies generally. They can be top-down or bottom-up. So top-down is where you have a bigger deal size. It will take longer to sell, and usually you would go to someone like CEO, someone who's more of a decision maker. You talk to them, and from then on, it's about mapping their needs to what you can offer. Bottom-up is where you would address the user. You would expect them to really like the product, maybe have a free trial of it, and raise this up with their decision maker, maybe then goes up to the management. So the two would, you can think of trial experiences with both, but they look very differently. Okay.
Yeah, and very key thing that Todor
is good.
Todor is good.
Yeah.
That Todor said is sometimes sales on your end will require investment. And I'm again trying to map to our experience. And from our experience, there are two key terms that our clients and partners often use. One is transactional, like this is transactional, and the other is, hey, this is a partnership. The way we try to work with our clients is to establish partnership, like long-term partnership. We position ourselves as development partners beyond code. Like we want to be the core and the stability factor for our clients, and we have been throughout the years. But from time to time, it feels like things are transactional, and the problems are when you think it's partnership and the client think it's transactional, and vice versa, when you think it's transactional and the client think it's a partnership. So when you want to build a partnership, I think almost always we have made an initial investment on our end, like either working for free or delivering way more than what is expected, just to gain trust, because we are often perceived as cheap labor from Eastern Europe that will do the coding, and we always have to fight in order to show, hey, by the way, we are equal to the US folks that you're going to hire, sometimes even better, and we can be running the software on your end, and you have the arbitrage of us being in Eastern Europe and labor being cheap. So it's a good deal on both ends. But when you want to build a partnership, that's what I'm thinking. On our end, we always do an initial investment. We always do. And every time that we think about, let's charge them for this time, and we make it transactional while we want to build a partnership, it fails. Like this, just doing a reflection on our end.
Yeah, I mean, any sales process would take investment. Like just having a salesperson itself is an investment already into sales. The question is, how much are you willing to invest, and also does it make sense compared to what you're getting back? There are ways to also address the challenge of what you're going into. Is it transactional or a partnership? You could have different offers basically for the two and be clear with the other side which one they're getting in. Or maybe you can go into an offer with them for a year and then presume that within a year you'll be clear which way they want to go. And those two can have different terms. Like they can have different contract ending terms, different pricing as well. Let's say if they're more committed to you, you can, if they can demonstrate commitment, you can give them a better terms for them.
Yes. And that's why we created the consulting product, because we were turning down offers that are actually good work. It's transactional by nature.
Mm-hmm.
The client is not looking to work with us for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
They just want something done now, and they see the authority in us, and they want to work with us. And we're like, hey, let's make a 6 months deal. We're going, and we start selling something that the client does not want. The client wants, hey, please fix this, just this.
Well, it's
2 days, please.
I think it's. I don't know your industry well, and I don't know selling services well. But it's important to know that you could look at transactional opportunities as a gateway to partnership. Like if you do a great job with transactional opportunities, I presume you've had cases where they say, right, well, 2 years from now, well, actually now we have a different problem. Can you help with this as well? And it ends up being a partnership. So it kind of makes sense for those to be less profitable, because you could see them as a business development exercise.
Great transition. I was going to ask about business development. And by the way, we have this internal diagram where we have like the flow, we call it the business development diagram, the flow of new business. And at the end is what we call the sweet spot, which is long-term partnerships, long-term supports, things where we have established a good relationship and we are working towards a certain goal. In the middle is something that we call the grind, and all those things that start as a transactional relationship and are short-term and short-span are always in the grind. And what we're trying to do is to see if we can either turn something from the grind towards the sweet spot, or build a good enough relationship while we're working with a client, so that client then returns to us with something else. And this has been, at least for us, again, we are tech guys. We had zero knowledge and zero intuition about sales, like zero. We were really, 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 really bad at this, like extremely bad.
True.
This was quite the eye opener, because then you realize, hey, not everything needs to be transactional, not everything needs to be a long-term partnership, and you just have to be open to a lot of opportunities. And you need to, if someone wants to give you money, and it's not for like illegal stuff and bad things, you should find a way to take that money, or redirect the client to someone who can bring value to them. And this actually helped us remain in business. Let's put it like this.
I can imagine. And there's I'm fortunate to work with some amazing leaders at AMPECO, and my manager is one of the most knowledgeable, I would say, people about sales in Bulgaria. And one of the things I've learned from him is that you need to, especially in the early days of a business, or in any growth stages of a business, you need to make yourself available. You might not necessarily straight away see how you can benefit from a certain partnership, but if you see that there might be some ways, or if you know that this is the right place to be, this is the right segment where I need to impress, this is where people need to be talking about, how good I am, you need to be there. You need to be even doing work that's not very profitable in the beginning, but you need to be creating your name. You need to be educating the right people in your industry about how good you are.
Especially if you're looking at the longer term game. Because we have clients, for example, that 8 years ago we had something really small with them, and now the same person is working in a different company, in a third company, and he refers us, and it turns out something big.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about charge point operators, and this is why, as a company to date, we still service both large enterprises, but also companies that are starting out. Because we've seen how in a new industry, a lot of the successful people are literally no one today. are nobody today. Like they might be just starting out, but if they're good at what they're doing, they were able to build a large business and so a big partnership with us. So you need to be open. You need to be supporting everyone who needs your support, and really be, giving more than you take, especially in the early days of those growth stages.
I'm really happy that you're saying this because most of the times when people hear sales, they associate it with arrogance and like being the tough guy on the private jet. I'll turn 100 million in 1 billion for this Instagram reel so you can buy my course. But we are steering in the wrong direction. Ivo, when you hear the term business development, how do you make sense of it?
Someone that develops the business. Well,
it's good that we have a guest that can explain things.
Toshko, can you help us with that?
Well, right. Well, we spoke about what sales is, right? The process from understanding someone might be interested in working with you to signing the deal with them. Business development is more of a long-term endeavor. It's not really about a strict process, but it's more about what we just discussed, building the right relationships with the right people who can become strategic partners now or tomorrow. So it's about nurturing those relationships, understanding well where you can help them, but also understanding where they could be of help for you. So I don't know much about the business you do, but for example, I think that how close you stay to the Django community, how much you contribute back to it, I think this can be seen as a business development effort.
That's an interesting take. We never saw this as a business development. I still think that this is not actually business development, even though our engagement with the Django community has brought us a lot of business. But actually, if you're what I'm hearing is you're not aiming to close a deal when you're doing business development. You're not aiming to sell anything. You're not going with this intention.
Well, the ultimate intention is to sell business, but the business development process, maybe the success of the business development process is not closing a deal, but it's creating the opportunity so that the salesperson, there we go.
It's all right.
It's all right.
So that the salesperson can take it from there.
Yeah.
Business development. Let's say you work a lot with startups, for example. Where do you find those startups?
Usually, so how we find new business right now is almost exclusively by referrals.
Right.
Like this is how we find new business. Very rarely we go and knock on doors or go to events, and then we have done this. We have closed businesses, but the ones that are actually working for us come from a referral because they come really, really warm.
Right.
Like
so is it referrals by existing customers?
Yes.
Is it sometimes referrals by people who are not your customers?
Sometimes we have like people we've worked with somehow, and they refer out
yes,
for example, people from the courses, people from the conference, people from like friends
from our extended network, but it's still people that we know through the things that we have been doing over the years.
Okay, so it's mostly people you've worked with.
Yeah.
Well, business development is the idea that you can create those partnerships where you will be recommended by someone in the industry. It's good for them to recommend you because they know you're the best option. So by recommending you, they'll be helping out their friend. But it's also great for you because this, partnership brings you new business. So in the charge point management scenario that we discussed, we mentioned at the very start that it might be us recommending hardware suppliers, or the hardware suppliers might be recommending us. So this is a typical example. We have, of course, interest in recommending the best hardware, but out of 50 suppliers, there might be 5 that we're happy to build a good relationship with because we can bring business to them, they can bring business to us.
All right, so it's safe to say that business development comes before sales, and it can generate interests and leads and demands, and then sales takes over, and at a certain point, pre-sales takes over. Am I correct on this?
Yes, so pre-sales steps in to handle the complexity of the sales process.
All right.
It's not necessary. Not every buyer will want a heavy process. Some people will, especially if you're in the early days, you have the financing, you have the team, you have fewer decision makers, you have fewer stakeholders.
All right.
It's kind of easy to figure out what you need. And also, as a small company, you don't have a lot of the baggage that a big company is bringing, like a lot of the risk management they need to do.
All right. So we have business development, sales, pre-sales.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-sales is, as you said, is optional if the client is, for example, not an enterprise. And then you have solutions consulting, which is your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of pre-sales. So pre-sales, think of it as it really depends on the company, on what they're selling, and also what is their philosophy to selling. But pre-sales can be non-technical or technical.
All right.
Depending on the company, product, and so on. Solution consulting is our non-technical pre-sales team. We also have a technical pre-sales team, which is technical architecture consulting. So the team I lead is non-technical. We can step in with really good understanding of the industry, each one of the use cases, each one of the business models, so we can unpack the customer's needs in depth. We can also map it to the product because we understand the product in a lot of detail. So we can say, right, well, this problem you solve with this and this and that feature, and actually when you combine tariffs like this and electricity costs like this, you can achieve this more complex model to offer your services to the market. Technical architecture consulting, or our technical pre-sales, steps in conversations where a customer wants to build own interfaces, for example. So they advise on the use of our API, on how that will be set up architecturally, or if you want to have a single sign-on solution, how does the data flow between the different components.
And those are the so-called sales engineers.
Yeah, so sales engineering is, exactly, is the short answer. But sales engineers are typical pre-sales example. And in some companies, the pre-sales team would be called sales engineering.
All right, so it's
the ones that have more technical pre-sales.
Yeah, it's safe to assume that you, as a solutions consultant, which is non-technical pre-sales, you already have a pipeline of clients that you are working towards closing a bigger deal.
Yes, but it's more like the sales team has the pipeline.
And you help the sales team.
We help them in every step of the process, especially when it's a more complex purchasing process.
But you are communicating daily with the client.
Right, but we don't own the relationship. So it's the salesperson whose role is to create a really good relationship and communicate with that customer. Quite often the salesperson is the point of contact within the company. All right. We also have to create a good relationship. We have to create the right relationship with the guys who are testing the product, for example, guys who want to have a feeling of the platform, but also the support they can get in the process.
Okay. I think I finally have a good map in my head. If I am the sales at AMPECO, and you are the client who wants to build a really big network of EV charging stations, and we've already established a relationship, what I'm going to say at a certain point is, hey, I'm gonna get you in touch with Todor. He's on our pre-sales team. He's crazy good, and he will be able to talk with you in more details about the electricity cost, about some of the problems that you have, about how to map better with our solutions. And just don't worry, he's super good. So this is kind of the dynamic that we're going to have. This is
and
interesting.
If I have some technical questions, for example, hey, does your API support JSON, blah blah something? I ask you, and you refer to the technical guys, or
I would say it's a blurred line. I mean, many of those questions we can answer ourselves. So even though it's a non-technical pre-sales team. It's not a clear line, right? It needs to be somewhat blurred. So we can talk about the basics, about basics around the technology we use, or the strengths of the architecture we have. But it really depends on who we're talking to about this and what is the level of depth, right? So if they need to know how to make specific API calls and why a certain way is better than another, it needs to be the technical guys who advise them on the best practices.
Yeah. If you are the big business guy who's going to be building a network of EV charging stations, you would most probably say, "Hey, I have this company here, Hacksoft. They will do the implementation on my end." So you talk with them.
Most probably.
Most probably.
Yeah, correct. That happens a lot. So we have, I mentioned we aim to be the platform of EV charging, allowing, because if you want to have your own application, it's great to start with a white label application, but actually, if you want to differentiate, you need to build your own thing.
Yeah.
And this is why we are very open, so everything in the product is exposed, so customers often build their own interfaces, and the technical team that I mentioned is advising them or advising the third parties that develop those interfaces in how to use the API or what are the best practices, what other customers have achieved.
All right.
I finally understood those terms. Thank you for the pre-sales and sales. And
I have some questions.
Yeah.
So when it comes to actually closing the deal, you mentioned contracts, and I
Right.
guess somewhere in this chain, at the end, there is a person that is capable of figuring out the contract, the actual billing, the price, all of these things. Is this still part of the sales, or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, so before contract, there's the commercials. That's in our organization. This is handled through the salesperson. They need to negotiate the right terms that work for everyone. But then you go into contract terms. This is where I step in. So I lead those discussions on AMPECO's end. And it's not really related that much to pre-sales. It's more about that I've been with the organization for a while and I understand the way we want to do sales and why we have something in the contract. I suppose the way where pre-sales can be relevant to contracts is to provide feedback to the customer. Provide feedback to the customer about why something is there in terms of understanding why our solution works in this way. So this is why we have the contract or the SLA, for example, set up in this way. But overall responsibility for the contracts is me because I've been with the organization for a while and I understand our sales processes and what we want to offer.
Okay. Because every time I hear contracts, I just imagine lawyers that are doing, fuzzy wording on paper.
Well, if you think about it, contract negotiation is a sales process on its own.
It is.
So it's really a matter of understanding the domain. So like in this case, it's the different terms and conditions and what could be their effect, what are the risks associated with each, what level of flexibility can each one of those offer to the customer. And then really knowing which ones we can be flexible with and which ones we need to maintain. It's about understanding the needs of different stakeholders on the customer side, but also on our side. So, for example, we have finance team who want certain terms to remain. We have support teams who want the SLA to stay a certain way, and we have investors who will care about certain KPIs. So, some frame of the contract will need to stay the same way.
All right.
Yeah, and that's why you need a bigger team. And now I understand why companies like AMPECO have bigger sales in general, pre-sales teams, because you cannot handle this as just the CEO or just a single salesperson. You really cannot handle. You can handle this with one client, but when you have 100 clients, then you need a team of capable folks who can run the entire thing, because this generates money and this makes the investors happy, and it's important to have happy investors. Also,
that's important.
Not always, but
you mentioned a lot of different roles that we all basically call sales roles, which makes sense for a bigger company that's trying to close like enterprise clients. Is it true that if you're a smaller company and you have like 2 salespeople that do all of this, you have absolutely no chance to close a big tender?
First of all, it is true that if you're a smaller sales team, you need to be doing all of this. And this is how I got exposed to all of it. And it is true that if you're a small company, you have no chance of winning a big tender. But it's not because you don't have the people.
Okay.
It's more about because you don't have the credibility. So large organizations, the main thing they care about is risk. Which means you might have better product, you might have better support, you might have better talent, but if you don't already work with other large organizations, you just appear more risky. Like so big buyers are willing to buy something that's 70% is good, but 30-40% more reliable, less risky.
All right.
And this explains why, for example, in our industry, like the service, Bulgaria is a service-oriented software industry with few product companies here and there. This explains why in our industry everyone aims to grow big.
Yeah.
Because first this gives you better margins and more profit, but then second you can start working with bigger enterprises, which can give you like more stable business. But for us, 35 people, we have zero chance of winning a big enterprise client right now. And that's why we're working with smaller companies, startups, and somehow we found a niche of actually businesses that make money, and we take care of everything that's software related for them. Like this is for if you open our ideal customer profile, we have such a document. This is what we describe. We work best with companies that give us everything about their software and IT, and we run it for them. And those are our best clients and our best relationships.
So I think this is.
But I don't know how
to.
No,
based on your
no, it's not outstaffing would be if we are working with a bigger enterprise and they have gaps in their internal teams and they need to fill those gaps, and we just give them the human resources, not always the whole team, but rather here are 5 folks that are going to fill your 5 gaps for backend, frontend, and QA. And those 5 folks, although they are working at HackSoft, when they are working with the client where they have been outstaffed, they will most probably be working in 5 different teams with like different people. Like this is the team augmentation model, and we had an entire episode with Timo. Go watch it, where we explained all of this.
It's good.
What we do best is when the team is internal here at HackSoft and the team is led by someone at HackSoft. We call them technical team leads, but they also do quite a lot of product management and product ownership. And they are the point of communication with the client. Like the client knows, they keep the relationship with the client. They kind of act like an account manager also. And the client knows that whenever they need something, be it they are developing a product or they have a suite of products that need support and additional feature development, they know who to contact. And those are the clients that we build products with them, and also, for example, set up Google Workspace or set up some kind of an ERP system, or they have problems with their Outlook. They know that they can pick up the phone and someone will help them with their IT and software. Like this is, and it's really hard for me to describe it unless I go into way more details, and it's really hard for us to find such clients. Because those are the best clients where we have the most agency, because then we like to push them in a direction that generates revenue for them. Like this is something that we've been doing since the last year. It's also been an eye-opener. It's not about the software development, but rather where you bring value and what can you do that will bring more revenue to that client. And of course, there are clients where you fill gaps. Like this is the majority of the business, to be honest. Because it leverages the arbitrage of salaries and prices. But then again, there are clients that want to work with you because they can rely not only on your expertise, but also the incentives are aligned that their success means that we need to be doing things in a certain way and not just focus on the pure coding and software development, but rather give them a more holistic approach over the entire IT and software and product thing that they're building. But that was a mouthful.
That makes sense. So this is your ideal type of customer, and what about if we think of small companies and large enterprises? What's in between? Maybe mid-sized companies. Have you had experience with those, and why are they not your best customer?
Mid-size is like about 50 people.
I don't know what's small in your case. What are the typical customers?
Most of them are under, I think, 50 people.
Under 50 people.
Under 50 people are most of the
right. So if a
company
company is, let's say, 200 to 2,000 employees, I'm interested in why it wouldn't work for them, but it will work for small companies.
It will work for them, and perhaps most recently we are trying to be, as you mentioned in the beginning, open and flexible. The thing is, they have certain processes in place, and they're looking for someone to fit in those processes. And for some time, we were not the best pick if you want someone to fit within those processes. What we learned over time is once you fit in those processes, once you gain trust, you can start bringing the Hacksoft magic and making things work better for them. But what we were lacking is the initial, hey, just trust us. Like some part of our sales process is, hey, just trust us, and here are some case studies to prove our point, but just trust us. What we're trying to do right now, and this is the grind, is do what the industry is doing and build trust by following the processes of other companies until we get to a point where we can start bringing more value than just doing the actual work and being proactive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess what I'm getting at is I wouldn't say that you have zero chance of selling to a big company if you're 35 people. It would depend a lot on how those 35 people are organized. Because if they are, a team lead who acts as the account manager and 5 people who deliver, it's like you have 5 companies of 6 people. I suppose if
Yes.
more about the organization is set up to handle the different needs of different stakeholders in large enterprises. So let's say there's someone who's focusing more on security, there's someone who is focusing more on more complex architectural work, or someone who's focusing more on interfaces. I suppose if you set up the organization in ways that address large enterprises' needs better, you might have a better way of winning them. But ultimately, it's about the risk, is what you mentioned. To those guys, you need to demonstrate that you work with similar companies.
Yep.
And maybe you have, for example, small companies that you've worked with that have achieved success and built a name for them. So those are the kind of case studies you want to put out. They will already be perceived by mid-size, and this is how you can go after mid-size, for example.
This is what I'm trying to do, and we can make a break after this.
Yeah.
But I think what Todor said, that the way that we structure our companies, we have 6 different companies with 5 people in them because we're working with different clients, and it's like addressing totally different needs. If you want to focus towards enterprise, you need to build your company in such a way that whenever the enterprise has a need, you can directly address it. You already have it internally. You don't have to start with, hey, let's start a team from scratch. Awesome.
Yep.
Good. Let's make a break.
According to the YouTube analytics, huge percentage of you are not subscribed to our channel. So if you like our content, please subscribe. We are aiming at 2,500 subscribers, and at the point we reach them, we are going to do a giveaway. We still don't know what we are going to give away, but if you have any good suggestions, please put them in the comments below.
Klapaj butala.
Yes.
And we're back after the break, and what we were discussing before the break is to follow up with some of the terms and then go into enterprise sales. And just to summarize, we talked about what is sales, what is pre-sales, what is business development, what is solutions consulting, what is sales engineering, and we have customer success and account manager, which would be great if we can also put a couple of words behind those terms, and then we can dive into enterprise sales more. I think we have been hovering over this topic so far, but we can go into more detail. And for me, customer success is an enigma. Like, this is like a relatively new term, and I have no idea what it is.
For me as well. Right. Well, those terms actually, account manager and customer success, I would say they can vary a lot in different organizations. It really, at the end of the day, it really depends on what they imagine in the specific context with this role. But generally speaking, I can talk about our case. Customer success people are the ones who, I don't want to say act as a project manager of the delivery, but they're ultimately the main point of contact, and they're responsible for the success of this project and this customer. this is mainly about the delivery of our product, configuring it to their needs and so on, but also about, you know, advising on other opportunities we see that this customer might not be aware of. You know, being there for when they need a partnership in some area, like also, you know, maintaining the communication with the other functions of the business that can actually put this customer in touch with the desired partner. But yeah, generally it's focused on delivery and making sure delivery is successful and this customer is ultimately successful with what we're delivering to them.
So you mentioned that the sales keeps the relationship with the customer, but you also mentioned that the customer success is the main point of contact for the client.
Right,
So
post-sales.
Post-sales.
So this is the main thing I need to
Right.
specify. Yeah, salesperson would be mainly post-sales. Then if you have enterprise sales or business to business, but mainly for enterprise sales, it makes sense that the salesperson is there after the sales process as well, at least for some period. So, you know, so the customer doesn't feel like they're being handed over to someone else.
Exactly.
And also, all of the discussions they had with the salesperson, they, you know, there's someone else right there in that same meeting who also remembers that discussion. So they didn't oversell in any way. But yeah, it's important for those more complex deals to make sure there's a continuation of the process. But generally speaking, after the sale is the customer success who owns the project.
Okay. And in some ways, we can say this is also the account manager.
Yeah, so account manager is a term that can, I would say it generally includes two things. One is sales, after the sales is being done. So this is upsell and cross-sell. And the second thing is relationship management. And which one of those two is more important? Which one is a bigger part of the mix? It really depends on the type of organization and what it's selling. So, for example, for the organizations where most of what you could sell happens at one point and then there isn't a lot of opportunity for upsell or cross-sell, account manager will be person mainly responsible for relationship management, mainly acting as an escalation point if something's not right with the customer success manager and how they're handling things. And also, you know, understanding, again, customer needs, advising on opportunities, but mainly relationship management. There's also organizations that call their main salespeople account managers. And this is because a lot of the sales is actually completed after the first sale. So this is where you have to do a lot of renewals, for example. Yeah, or there's a lot of opportunity for upsell and cross-sell.
Okay. Makes sense. I think this makes sense. So basically, this is the person whose phone is ringing when there is a problem or the client or the customer wants to ask something.
Or this is the customer success.
Well, it really depends on what kind of problem it is.
Yeah.
And maybe if it has been handled well, it might not reach the account manager. But if it's a big problem, yeah, for sure, they need to be aware and they need to be, you know, pulling together the resources of the company to be able to address this customer's need.
Got it. I think I made sense of customer success and account management. And this kind of pushes us towards enterprise selling, and you have a lot of experience there, so let's go there.
Right. Well, enterprise sales. If we think of different types of sales, you have B2C, business to consumer. You have B2B, which is a very general term, because business to business can mean selling to small companies like micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. And enterprise sales is at the other spectrum, at the other side of the spectrum. It's really large organizations. They have complex buying processes. They have a lot of stakeholders involved. So what's typical for enterprise sales is, first of all, you have bigger deals.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, it's complex to sell to those guys. It takes a lot of time. So it needs to be for the right amount, right? And you need to be, you know, willing to invest that much into that sales process only if it's a big deal. So first thing that's typical is that it's large deals. Second thing that's typical is that they take a while. You know, in my experience, this has been between 6 months if it's really quick, but it can go to like typical would be like a year, but
Wow.
it could be year and a half, 2 years. There's a good reason for it. They start with scanning the market and every player on the market. So, for example, in our niche, we just won a very large energy company in Europe as a customer. They said they reviewed 33 platform providers like ours in the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah. So from 33, you narrow it down to like 5, but that narrowing down process is a tender, right? It's first stage of the tender. A lot of questions about capabilities, about the company, about ability to deliver, and so on. And then within 2 or 3 months, you arrive at the next phase. Next phase is, the 5 key providers. It's much more about the more complex to solve challenges, how you would go about them, more about the relationship. So one thing that's very typical for enterprise sales is the relationship. Those guys are not just looking to try out your product. They want to try out your relationship management. They want to see within a few months how close can we be, like how well you answer my emails, how supportive you are. So at the pre-sales team, we need to offer a demo of the support as well, not just the product.
Yeah. So when you know you're one of those 5 and it's time to strengthen this relationship, I suppose you are quite proactive, and by you I mean the entire company, to fly and get to the client, meet in person, and start talking in person. I think this is quite important.
Yeah, actually, we got quite lucky with COVID, because COVID put everyone at a level playing field.
All right.
So this is how we were able to win customers abroad. But now everything is already returned to normal. So you do need to be present. We already know some of those people personally, because we've been doing a good job over the last years and meeting everyone and building a name for ourselves. But also, whenever we don't know them or we don't know the specifics of the project, we will definitely aim to fly there, have a short conversation, show that we are willing to invest in this partnership and that we want to understand their needs and their concerns in a lot of depth. Okay, so yeah, flying there is important. But yeah, this is the general structure of those larger processes. Quite often they have months of delays because, as the company assesses the available option, they start thinking about their strategy as well. What do they want to buy? Like one of those options is well established, but it's kind of a competitor to mine as well in some ways, or it's owned by a competitor. And another option is amazing product, but not that well established on the market, and so on. So you have to think about what you want to buy. And sometimes it's not a simple answer where you have like 10 people making the buying decision.
Got it. And just a quick note to our listeners: if you are considering starting a company or doing a startup that's aimed at enterprise, and what Todor right now is saying sounds like strange and odd, like to us, for example, I hope you find value in this podcast, because this is the general idea. If you want to go there, you have to be doing those things that Todor is saying. And he mentioned something really important to us while we were having the break, that we are reinventing the wheel of doing sales and business development for HackSoft, because we're tech guys, and little by little, basically by trial and error, like true tech guys, we got somewhere. So sometimes it's a good idea to listen to folks who have been doing this and do not reinvent always the wheel.
Yeah.
And relationship, like you're top 5, you're considered, and how do you end up from being top 5 to being the one?
That's $1 million question, right? Well, I would say at the core, so consultative approach to sales is important, I would say, in any business-to-business sales. But for enterprise, it's the only way to go about it. It's super important. So to win a customer, you need to show the deepest understanding of their needs, but also show flexibility on your end to be able to accommodate those needs. And to be able to do it, to understand in depth, you need those touch points. You need to have a good relationship. You need to make sure they open up. You need to make sure you can understand everything that's not been working well so far, or why they might prefer to go with someone else, and what kind of company they're looking for. You need to figure out the right way to tick those boxes, if you like. To win enterprise customers, you need to have a good understanding of enterprise sales process. You need to be selling to the right people. So, for example, with enterprise sales, you have more complex setups where you have different roles in the buying process. You have champions, usually the people who are more open to listening to you, and people who you're targeting to sell to initially, so they can start selling you within their own organization. But they're usually not the decision maker. Decision maker is usually someone else, and you might not get to talk to them at all. So this is where it can get very tricky. Those are the two main things. There's a lot of other roles like gatekeepers, like other stakeholders that would play a role in that sales process, but those are the main dynamics you're aiming to manage.
So you're saying that you can get a yes or a no without ever meeting the decision maker that gave the final yes or a no?
It might be the case that you meet them, but let's say you have 20 meetings with the champion, and you have one meeting with that person just to see you in person and validate you're a real person, and get a feeling for you.
Okay.
Really what happens is, and how much weight a champion can have in the decision making would vary based on the organization and on their culture, like how willing they are to trust, the operational person with the biggest point that we're solving. Because it might be a new organization and most of the knowledge is held in management, so management wants to leverage their experience and relationships to make that decision. So part of selling to large enterprises is understanding how they'll make a decision.
Okay.
What is their organizational culture? Who will make the decision? Who else needs to be satisfied? Who else you need to care about, and who you shouldn't really care about, because you can't focus on answering in great detail to everyone.
Well, we had a similar experience with one of our previous clients back in the years, where we knew who the decision maker is, but we could not talk to that person ever at all. We knew that this person's making the decisions and making the calls. We wanted to make our case and make our point, but every time we tried speaking with that person was, those are technical topics. Please speak with this particular other person at our company that deals with technical topics. And this particular other person, he hated us, really.
Okay.
And this blew up the relationship.
And at the end of the day, the final decision is taken by the other person.
The other person, yeah.
Not the technical one, but the...
But how we are presented, we never got the chance to present ourselves.
So our champion was not the right one, probably. I don't know.
He was anti-champion.
Anti-champion.
just again to map to our experience. And this can be really, really frustrating. And what we could have done better, I think, and this is again something that Todor said, once you are in top 5, or once you are actually being considered as a provider of something, you need to get in person, like fly to the client, get there. This is something that we just realized last year, because we were, why should I fly to the States when we can make a Zoom call? Which is, for all of you folks trying to make some kind of business, this is extremely wrong. You need to get there. And this is what we should have done.
Yep.
Get on a plane, get there, overcome the person that didn't like us because he was in another geographical area, and just go talk to the real decision maker.
And we didn't mention anything about product. I think in order to be a good sales, you need to have a good product, right? And is it easier when the product is good? Does it matter at all when you are selling a software solution to be an actual good software solution? And I imagine that enterprise companies, they have a lot of needs, so the product needs to be really mature, stable, and just working without any problems, because otherwise it would be really hard to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a good product is where you start. Like at the very least, you need to have a good product to be able to sell to those large companies. and when we say good product, it's not just about the product's capabilities, but it's about product's features as well, like how flexible it is, like how easy it is to integrate it with my other solutions, let's say the ERP, CRM that I already have, how secure that product is. So large organizations care a lot about security. This is one of the main things main differentiators between small and big enterprises. They have very strict policies. They, thinking of GDPR, actually, the GDPR fines are based on your income. So a large company, it's easy for a large company to invest more into having a security team, because it's easily justified with the risk of having to pay those large fines for, to the European regulators. So security is an important topic, and to sell well to large enterprise, you do need also the organizational structure to enable it, like a security officer, data privacy officer, the people who can answer those questions in depth. But also the good thing in security is you can easily tick some boxes because there's certificates, there's audits as well. So once you do the job, it's kind of scalable. You can share that certificate, and many customers will end the conversation there.
And that's, again, risk management. That's why we cannot sell to enterprises. We have 0 certificates because we kind of think about them as time wasters. But if you get to doing business, they're extremely important. And Ivo's question was spot on, because we never really talked about the product up to this point. We were talking about the sales process, the business development process, the relationship with the client. And I think this ties really well to what we said in the last episode with Timo. We are on the end of the product and the software development, and sometimes, or most of the times, we don't really matter, and in a recession we are just a cost that they want to cut, because as you see, you need to have a good product. But I think that this is an assumption that I'm going to make. If you close a deal with a big enterprise, even if you don't have a good product, they will make sure you will have a good product. It's kind of is going to be part of the deal, or otherwise you're gonna get sued, or the contract is going to be terminated. So even if you don't have a good product, if you are open enough and flexible enough in order to close this big client, you will get a good product. This is an assumption that I'm making right now.
Makes sense.
I guess they can give you some time to fix some gaps that are sort of secondary. But if you're looking from the product company perspective, you're aiming at servicing multiple large enterprises. So something they really care about is how much of your attention they can get, like how much of your capacity to develop can be based on my needs. So, this is why it will never be a perfect answer for them, right? They're buying a product off the shelf. The best thing you can do is to make sure this product is very customizable. But you'll never be able to say, right, I'll be a development studio for you and know your needs. This is why they would generally really care about having a product that's somewhat complete already, or at least, complete for the current state of their needs.
All right.
Speaking about recessions and pandemics, how do you find the market in the last 6 months, let's say? Is it different? Is it different in the enterprise sector too? Is it different in industry that's growing really fast, and the EV thing is getting really big, and it's going to get bigger and bigger for sure? How do you find the market for the last 6 months?
Well, in the last 6 months, we definitely see the effects of more expensive capital.
Okay.
So a lot of our customers are either startups or corporate startups that are, some of them are backed by VCs, by large investment funds. So for them, it's more difficult to get, or more expensive to get capital. What this results in is less companies get financing, and just the better ones get financing. So some of the companies we're talking to, maybe less of our prospects now have a few million of investment than they did like a year ago. But some of the prospects we're talking to now have 100, 200, 300, 400 million of investment. If you could tell that the venture capital is focused on the winners, And we also see more consolidation. Okay, we see more of the leaders buying, the seventh best operator in the country, for example, because some companies start struggling. This is still a cash burning business. This is still a land grab. They are still focused on gaining market, gaining users, and getting the right locations for their stations. So not everyone can survive those more difficult days. So what happens is the ones who are doing things right and they receive good investment for that, they're able to buy the 10th biggest player in their country.
All right.
So part of what we need to be doing strategically is to be betting on the winners as well, making sure we service really well the ones who will be the winners in a market that's consolidating.
But it's not like you are feeling the recession in a way that there are not enough sales and not enough business opportunities, but rather you need to be more smart about where you invest your time and energy.
I think we feel some of it, but it's not hugely dramatic. We do. I mean, since it's a very young industry that's developing so quickly, my take will not be a good overview of the markets, right? Because there's a lot of specifics in my case. So we see things changing in our industry every 6 months for the last few years. And right now that they've changed in a certain way, but honestly, I know that in 6 months it can look completely different.
All right.
So actually, what do you guys see from your perspective?
For us, it's really it's been a struggle. We again discussed this in greater details in the last episode with Timo. But the first 2 quarters last year were great, and then suddenly somebody flipped the switch and things started deteriorating from companies not raising capital to closing deals and companies not paying their invoices to basically the prices being pushed down from a lot of other software development studios being without work, and also taking into account the AI factor that we have. I think we are feeling the AI the most right now, the software development industry, and the last 2 quarters were really hard, I would say. So definitely it feels like a recession in Europe, and in the States, not really a recession, but rather people are holding on their money because they can make more money if they just put them in the bank and with high interest rates rather than doing risky startup investments. So definitely, and I think in Bulgaria, because we are service oriented and we are one of the first expenses that are being cut. Everyone feels that there are layoffs going around. It's not as public as in the States. In the States, they want to make everything like a show. But there are layoffs going around, and we've been actively thinking what to do and how to position ourselves so we are more resilient when there is a recession, or we are just in the runway management business. This is something that someone said to us: hey, you are in the runway management business. All that matters is the runway that you have. Nothing else matters when you are doing a software service company. So yeah, we are definitely feeling it last 2 quarters, and I think this year is also going to be a better year. No growth, just try to survive.
And do you mentioned it's different in the because a lot of the things I see is it happens in the US. It takes a while to get to Europe, and it takes another while to get to Bulgaria. So has that been your experience as well? Because you mentioned the US, it might not be as slow, but maybe they're buying more carefully now.
Yeah, definitely. So the layoffs that were happening in the US for the last year and 2 are right now coming here, and I think we are going to see publicly available layoffs in the Bulgarian IT industry in the coming months. And we're just feeling the effect later. And nobody knows, it's like a very everyone's waiting for November 2024. Everybody's waiting for who the next president of the United States of America is going to be. And I think based on that, things will either be resolved or resolved. We'll see in which direction they're going to be resolved. But yeah, definitely.
I have a side question.
Go ahead.
As a technical person working with a lot of startups, I've been in many like sales meetings where the salesperson is promising something that's not even started yet. Which now that you're saying that for enterprise it takes like 2 years to close the deal, starting to make sense. But is it like a common practice, or is it just my experience, or how does it work?
Well, it's important to make sure you're being honest,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to be honest. You don't want to mislead them, and you don't want to manage expectations wrongly. But it's also very important to close the deal. So it's a struggle between the two, and a good salesperson. In our case, actually, me and my team do a bit of this in those tender processes. We're able to decide where is the line, right? What we can promise and for when. And it takes understanding. It takes a wider understanding. It takes an understanding of the customer and their need. Like, is this something that they will ask for from day one? Is this something that's fine to deliver at the phase 2 of the project? It also takes understanding of your own company. Actually, how quickly we can deliver this. Has this already been promised to another company? So I know it will be happening for sure. Or do I already know that this is something we're not interested in doing? So I definitely cannot promise it. So I would say the first phase, it takes someone from a sales, with a sales context like us, to be able to, take the first line of questions. Where it gets complex, if it's a big development, if it's something complex in terms of development, if it takes a lot of resource, or if it's very urgent, if it's a must-have for a period that's very soon from now. You also have to involve product team. It's part of the product team to be planning the development of the product. And also, I imagine if you're a service company, you'll be part of the company's portfolio to know what you can offer and what you cannot offer. So, in short, the answer to that question is you don't want to lose customers because you're under-promising.
Okay.
It's probably better to over-promise a bit. You have to know where is the line, though. And that line depends on a lot of variables. You need to understand the different variables well.
That's well said.
Yeah, that's well said. And I guess if you want to be transparent enough, you can say we don't have it now, but we can deliver it for you in, let's say, 6 months, which makes sense because this deal is going to be closed in 2 years either ways.
Right. So, yeah, usually where you have those kind of in-depth conversations, the deal will be closed in 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
So things that are, you deliver in the next few weeks, you can already say you have them. Things that you are kind of thinking of, but given this customer needs it, you will be able to prioritize it. You can also give a brief idea, like I'll be able to deliver this in the second half of the year, for example, but not provide too many specifics. But everything starts with understanding what's needed from the start. Exactly. What is a must and what's a deal breaker, and what else would you like to see? 3 months from then, 6 months from then, 9 months from then. It's about everything again starts with the business need of the customer.
And the expectation management and the relationship management, and you don't want to give headaches to your client when you're trying to close a big deal, like saying we don't have this, don't ask for this, but rather it's all like almost every answer. This is again an assumption on my end. It's like a partial yes. We have those capabilities. Those capabilities are coming. As Todor said, you want to close the deal. And this is something that we also learned perhaps last year, that you don't have to be totally honest about everything. Sometimes you have to overpromise and then just deliver on your overpromise, and everyone's happy.
Especially when you know that you can deliver.
Yeah.
That's important.
Well, you definitely shouldn't promise something if you know that you cannot deliver it.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear about this.
I mean, if you're sure that you can deliver it, I think it's totally fine to promise it.
Unless you want to have a career as a politician, then this is essential. You have to be promising things that you know you cannot deliver, because this keeps you in the game running. All right.
My papers are a little wet, so I can't see the next questions that we have.
So we have, I think, and again, very insightful. Thank you for all of this. I have here a section before we go to the human side of things into AI. I have a section that's basically, if you are to consult a newly starting business or start a business on your own, and the folks are going to ask you questions related to sales and business development. If you have to be, of course, more general, but what's important to you? What do you think is important to say to a newly starting business where the founders have no previous sales or business development experience? What would you say to them?
Do you think that's a big part of your audience?
I think, yes. I think our audience would love to hear more details about, as we were discussing so far, about doing sales, doing business development. But if someone's just starting and wants to have a few sentences in their head, like a frame, like a direction to follow, what would it be?
Well, it would be a frame, as you explained. That frame would probably be something like a go-to-market strategy. It would need to, without going into the semantics of it and the terminology, you will need to know well who you want to sell to, like who can benefit from your services. Then you need to know what is the right way to reach those people. When is the right way? Where is the right way? Like how do they want to be talked to? Like, is it I need to be handing out the flyer to them, or is it I need to be to make sure I can have in-depth conversations with them where I can demonstrate something? Do they need to know about me from other channels so they can validate my position on the market and in this sector? Then it's important to know how you're selling. Like, it's important to have a good sales process that's managing to turn people who are interested in your services into people who are working with you. And post sales, you also need to have the right people managing those relationships. You want to make sure customers you've already sold to, you're able to not just retain, but also benefit more from. Like, you do a great job for them, so they bring you more business. The overall go-to-market strategy would have to include those sales processes, where you find those customers, how you help them, but also generally how you market yourself. What are the tools, what are the channels you use? HackCast, for example.
Yes.
You might decide to make a podcast, or you might decide to focus in a certain niche, like a specific language, like Django, for example, and you might decide that, I want to start giving back more to this community because I want this community to know me very well. I want to contribute to its development. This way I'll show expertise, but also this way I'll be perceived as an expert. So if someone really needs a good solution, will come talking to me.
All right. And then I am, let's say, one of those founders. You just given me a very good framework, but I have no idea where to start. Okay, like I need to do 10 things from just what you just said. I need to do 10 different things. Where do I start?
Well, definitely start from, and definitely in your first stages, invest all the time you can invest in talking to people. You need to be out there. You need to have as many conversations as possible, because only then you'll be able to validate your assumptions. You need to understand what they need, why, how they buy, like what they're looking for when they buy services like yours. You need to get a lot of rejection so you can hear the reasons as well. Like, this will help steer you in the right direction. So as you grow, the most important thing, I think, is to validate assumptions, to develop your knowledge, to build out your relationships with key people in the market, and generally understand how this market works better, so you can be more successful in it.
Thank you for this. I think like the most important advice: be open, talk to people, be a good person. Like don't be arrogant or all-knowing, and just let the people in the market guide you. And little by little, you will find out why there is such a well-structured sales process with different roles. Eventually, if you get there and if you start seeing the need for having a account managers, customer success, like even using a CRM, this is like the best learning experience is to say, oh, that's why those tools exist. That's finally I understand it.
Right. Maybe to refer to something we mentioned a bit earlier today, in any stage of growth, you need to be giving. You need to be giving a lot, like providing to your community that you mentioned. You need to be helping out people a lot, so they know you better, and they know where you can add value. And maybe because of the value you added to them for free, they're happy to bring you some business.
Yes. So the only time you need to be transactional is when you're committing to your database. This is a very bad joke. I have something for bad jokes for in the last episode.
I'll
too.
pretend I understood.
Do you use modern AI tools in your day-to-day job? ChatGPT and all that jazz.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I use it in my day-to-day job. I see colleagues who use it actually, and I think it can help out in structuring things in polishing language, for example, because we have Bulgarians selling to native speakers somewhere else. So you do need a bit of help with that in some cases. And I see colleagues who are a little bit less confident with the language using it, and it's helping them. So it makes sense. I don't use it on a daily basis because I haven't really found something. Maybe I haven't put in the effort, to be honest with you, and I haven't found something that's it can be helpful with right now. I do use it sometimes to structure my thoughts better. So maybe there's a topic that I think I understand and I think I have experience with, but asking ChatGPT will help me structure the topic.
Okay.
And I think to understand something, you need to be able to structure it well. And then, give me 10 bullets. I say, right, let's group this into 5 bullets that actually make sense. I'll look at them, and based on my experience and the expertise I have, I would say I can actually think of another 2 or 3 bullets that are maybe even more important, and will help me create the big picture.
All right.
It will help me compare things sometimes. So yeah, I get benefit from it, but it's not in my daily operations, if you like.
That's great, actually. I mean, you're using it, but when it makes sense, which is better than just using it because you have to be using it as a tool.
Or because everyone's using it.
And ChatGPT will not catch a plane and go see the customer in person.
For sure. For now.
For now. It's going to be a strange-looking humanoid when it does, but... And we always like to finish with the human side of things because we are now in the era of AI, and at least I am a strong believer that the human part will become even more important when everything is AI. So how do you rest and recharge?
Not well. How do I rest? Well, I'm very passionate about sports. I grew up with sports, so my thing is trying out new sports. And the other thing I'm very passionate about is nature. So generally, those two things are what resets me and recharges me. Whenever I have less time and I still need to figure out a way to rest and recharge, I try to do something that's immersive. So my thing is to, let's say, pick a sport that is so immersive that it doesn't allow me to think about anything else. Like squash, for example. I really like squash. I used to have a playing partner back in the day.
Long time ago.
And football is the same. Like there's so many things to think about during play football that I'm not able to think about, all my concerns, whether personal or work related. It allows you to to be fully immersed, and also just the act of doing sports is just so good for you on a biochemistry level, that even if it's a bad sport, and even if you're bad at it, you'll just feel great afterwards. So that's my thing.
Sounds good. And about squash, it's so immersive that the only thing you can think about is how you're hearing your breathing, because you cannot catch your breath because you're running all over the place. But at least this is my experience. We should play sometime. Would be an interesting challenge match.
I'd love to. As I mentioned, I'm missing a partner now. So if you can replace Ivo, that would be great.
I will do my best. I'm not sure Ivo can be replaced in any shape or form or way, because he is very charismatic as a human being. But I will do my best to. We can try some squash, and he will say the thank yous about the entire episode. I will just hand you. We have a special gift for you because you came here. You took from your time and you shared a lot of valuable insights. So thank you for being our guest. And here's our small gift to you.
Thank you. I appreciate this, and thank you for having me, guys. I I love your podcast. I love how open you are in this podcast. It takes a lot to be willing to be vulnerable, and I appreciate that you do this here, and this creates a very honest environment that I think can be very helpful to a lot of people. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Love to hear that. All right, so that's the end of episode number 6.
Six, Teddy? Is it 6?
Is it 6? It's 6. We had Todor Stratiev here from AMPECO. It was a great episode. Please like, subscribe, and leave some comments.
Yeah.